Number 11, a line is described by the equation y equals x plus 8. What is the midpoint of the segment connecting its x-intercept and the y-intercept? All right, first of all, we're going to find a midpoint, but before we do that, we need the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So if you remember finding an x-intercept, we're going to let the y value be 0. And so that would mean that x is equal to negative 8. So our x-intercept is negative 8, 0. And then our y-intercept is letting the x be 0. So y equals 0 plus 8. So y equals 8. So our y-intercept is 0, 8. So now we have to find the midpoint. If you recall, the midpoint formula is basically just an average of the x's and the y's. So to get the midpoint, we'll add our x's and divide by 2. And then we'll add our y's and we'll divide by 2. Okay, so if I add the two x's, we'll get negative 8 plus 0 divided by 2. That gives me negative 4. And then if I add my y's, I'll get 0 plus 8 and divide by 2. That will give me positive 4. So the choice that I get to pick is D. Number 12. An approximation for a Celsius temperature can be found by subtracting 32 from the Fahrenheit temperature and dividing the result by 2. Which is the best estimate for a Celsius temperature when the temperature is 150 degrees Fahrenheit? So it tells us that we're going to take the Fahrenheit temperature, so I'm just going to call the Fahrenheit temperature F. It says we're going to have to subtract 32, and then it says we're going to take this answer and we'll divide that answer by 2. So when it says which is the best estimate for a temperature when the temperature is 150 degrees Fahrenheit, I know my F is going to be 150. So I will do 150 minus 32, which is 118. And if I divide that by 2, I end up getting 59 degrees, which is choice K. Number 13, a student has a library of 12 CDs. He then purchased N CDs. His friends then gave him twice as many CDs as he had just purchased. He now has 30 CDs. Which equation could be used to find out how many CDs he purchased? So I'm just going to go ahead and write an equation for this. Okay, he starts out with 12, and then he purchases N more, so we're going to put plus N. And then his friends give him twice as much as he just purchased, so they're going to give him 2N, and altogether I know he has 30 CDs. So now I can just combine like terms, so I'll get 12 plus 3N is equal to 30, and that is choice B. Okay, problem 14. Computers on sale cost $80 more than 80% of the retail price. What is the sale price of an $800 retail computer? Okay, I'm going to call the retail price R for right now. And then it says a computer on sale costs $80 more than, so more than means plus, 80% of the retail. So I'm going to put 80%, which would be 0.8 of the retail. And then it tells me what is the sale price of an $800 retail computer. So it told me that the retail price was $800. So now on my calculator I can just do 80 plus 0.8 times 800, and that gives me $720, which is choice J. 15. The numerator of a non-zero fraction, that means there would not be a zero in the numerator, is tripled and the denominator is cut in half. What could the original fraction have been multiplied by to obtain the same result? Okay, so I don't know what this fraction is. I'm just going to call the fraction A over B. And it tells me that I triple the numerator. Remember, the numerator is the top, so I triple the top, it becomes 3A. And then it says I cut the denominator in half. So cutting B in half would be 1/2 B. And then it said, what could the original fraction have been multiplied by to obtain the same result? So basically, we just need to figure out what this answer would be. So 3 divided by 1/2 would be the same thing as 3 times the reciprocal of 1/2, which would be 2. And if I multiply that out, I'd get 6. So multiplying by 6 would have given us the same result. Okay, number 16, in a bag of mixed fruit candies, 25% of the pieces are red, and the rest of the pieces are randomly selected from the 7 other colors. What is the probability of randomly picking a piece of candy that is not from the red bag? Okay, it nicely gives us that there are 7 other colors, but big whoop, really. 25% of the bag is red, which means 75% of the bag is not red. So if 75% of the bag is not red, my chances would be 75%. Probability is always a decimal or fraction, so 75% as a decimal is 0.75, and as a fraction it is 3/4, which is choice J. Number 17, how many different integer values of m satisfy the inequality 1/3 is less than 2 over m is less than 3/5? Okay, so first of all, integer values just mean positive and negative whole numbers. I can definitely see that m is going to have to be positive because it's in between two positive numbers. So we know that. I'm just going to start trying some m's, and it doesn't say what m satisfies, it says how many, so we need to keep that in mind. So I'm going to just start letting m equal 1. If m equals 1, I get 1/3 is less than 2, which is less than 3/5. So is 2 between 1/3 and 3/5? Absolutely not. So now let's let m equal 2. I'm going to get 1/3 is less than 2 divided by 2 is 1 is less than 3/5. And again, 1 is not between 1/3 and 3/5. So m equals 2 does not work. Let's try 3. Get 1/3 is less than 2/3, which is less than 3/5. Well, 2/3 is not in between 1/3 and 3/5, so 3 doesn't work. So let's try 4. So if I do that, 2/4 would be 1/2, which is less than 3/5. And then is 1/2 in between 1/3 and 3/5? Yes, it is. So m equals 4 works. Let's try 5. We'll get 1/3 is less than 2/5, which is less than 3/5. And 2/5 is in between 1/3 and 3/5. So that works as well. If you're not sure if 2/5 is in between those, if you change them to decimals, this was 0.3 repeating, this is 0.4, and this is 0.6. So you could tell the decimal equivalents do work. All right, let's try m equals 6. So I'll do 1/3 is less than 2/6, which is 1/3, which is less than 3/5. And notice 1/3 is not in between those because it's equal to 1/3, so 6 didn't work, which means all the others are not going to work either. So 4 and 5 were the only ones that worked, which means there are 2 integer values that satisfy that inequality. Okay, number 18. Employees of a company can purchase life insurance for $1 per month for each $1,250 worth of insurance. What would the annual cost be of $25,000 of insurance? Okay, it looks like this is another proportion problem, and these look kind of popular on this test. We're going to have insurance is $1 per month if you buy $1,250 worth. We want to figure out how much would it be if I bought $25,000 of insurance. So let's put an X there, I guess. Let's cross multiply. I'm going to get 1,250x is equal to 25,000. And if we divide both sides by 1,250, I end up getting 20. But then we have to be really careful because this dollar was every month, and it asks for the annual cost. So this is actually $20 per month. So if I want an annual cost, I will have to multiply by 12. And when I do that, I get $240 would be the cost of the life insurance. Okay, number 19. The product of a positive number multiplied by itself is 8. What is the sum when the number is added to itself? So the product of a positive number, I'm just going to call it x. If I multiply it by itself, it's going to equal 8. So really I have x squared is equal to 8. If I would like to know what that number is, we could square root both sides and I get x equals the square root of 8. All right, now it says what is the sum when the number is added to itself? So when I do x plus x, I'm going to get what? So when I do the square root of 8 plus the square root of 8, that gives me 2 square root of 8. And I notice the choices, that choice is not given, so I have 2 options. Probably the easier thing to do at this step would be to change this to a decimal and then change all of these to decimals and see which one matches it. If you are familiar with simplifying a radical, we'll do that as well. So I'm going to do 2. The square root of 8 is equivalent to the square root of 4 times 2, which is actually 2 square root of 4 times the square root of 2. The square root of 4 is equal to 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So my answer is going to be 4 square root of 2. But we could have easily just gotten that by finding decimal equivalents for each of those answers. Okay, problem 20. A rhombus and an equilateral triangle with perimeter 3 share a common side. What is the perimeter of the polygon formed by the triangle and the rhombus? Okay, first of all, a rhombus we need to know has 4 equal sides, and an equilateral triangle has 3 equal sides, and we know that they share a common side and they have a perimeter of 3. Okay, well, the equilateral triangle has a perimeter of 3, which means each side must be 1. So there's my, we'll pretend like that's equilateral. And then they share a common side, so I'm going to have my rhombus just go right here. So if it's a rhombus, all sides also have to be 1. And then it said, what is the perimeter of the polygon formed by the triangle and the rhombus? So notice we end up getting almost a house-looking figure. I just want the perimeter, the distance around. So if I add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my perimeter will be 5, which is choice J.